Hi, happy Friday. Friday's my favorite day of the week because then it's the weekend. So, wondering if you are wondering about my title. I love the question, what would so and so do? Why do I love that question? Because I ask myself all the time, what would Donald Castle do? So, who is Donald Castle? Donald Castle was the pastor of the church that I attended in Lombard, Illinois, at Calvary Episcopal. Father Donald Castle was my most powerful teacher of my whole life. He was someone who walked the talk. He lived in integrity. He was the most unconditionally loving man I've ever met in my whole life. And he taught me how to be. He was the closest thing to what I would have considered Jesus to be, who I would have considered Jesus to be. He was incredibly loving. He didn't judge. He treated everybody the same way. And he taught me so much because of how he modeled his beliefs, his values. So one story I remember out of so many, hi Tony, one story that I can share with you is there was a time when I attended the church. I was part of the church vestry, and we had to make all the decisions and policies and whatnot. And there was a homeless man who was homeless. There was no place for him to go. He had no place to sleep, and this was in the middle of the winter. He was a man who attended worship, but he was huge. He had, I'll call it, challenging hygienic issues. Nobody wanted to be around him. He was like an untouchable. And so most everybody from our church didn't want to include him. Well, actually, I shouldn't say they didn't want to include him. He needed a place to sleep. And so Father Castle allowed him to sleep in the church, which really wasn't supposed to happen. Liability issues and church policy and whatnot. So the vestry was really angry. They wanted him out. They thought Father Castle was being ridiculous, that it was a liability for us. But he still let him sleep there. And I was the only one that at the time that I can remember that agreed with Father Castle that, this man is homeless. Who knows if he has a mental issue or he had no job. There's lots of tension around this, just like the tension that's happening now in our world. Lots of division and separation, and people were angry. But Father Castle did what he knew was right, and he allowed him to sleep there. He took care of him. And at the time, I felt the tension with the congregation as well, but I was so inspired by Father Castle's willingness to take a stance and do what he believed was the most loving and unconditional thing to do, and that's what happened in the midst of people being upset with him. That taught me so much about integrity and being fearless. One of the other stories that I remember about Father Castle is that he died of cancer of the esophagus. It was a horrible experience to journey with him along that whole process. But it was shortly before he died, I went to visit him in the hospital, and he was really sick. And what blew me away by that visit with him is that, so I'm talking to him, he's in the hospital bed, and he's throwing up. He felt miserable. But he was still willing and wanted to tend to me and my concerns. He had hardly any strength left, but he got out of his bed, and he stood up and held my hand and prayed for me. He was the most selfless man that I've ever been with, and he made the hugest impact on my life. He taught me what it takes to be completely forgiving, completely selfless, unconditional, to treat everyone the same way. And so now when I have a challenge or a struggle or a decision to make, I will ask myself, what would Donald do? And I kind of channel his energy and bring him into my spirit, and I always get the most unconditionally loving and fearless answer. So that's my suggestion to you. Who in your life has impacted you the most? Or perhaps who in your life do you most aspire to be like? Who do you really respect? And maybe you tell yourself, oh, I can't be like them. I don't have that. I'm not capable. Because the truth is, you have all the qualities you need to be who you want to be. But it's always a great tool or strategy to remember who in your life inspires you the way Father Castle inspired me, and to ask yourself the same thing. What would, whoever that is, what would they do in this circumstance? So maybe for a moment, close your eyes and just settle in and connect with someone in your life, perhaps from the past. Maybe it's a relative, maybe it's a teacher. Who made the most impact on you in your life? Who is that person? And what qualities did they represent? What qualities in them do you most want to develop? Because that person, no matter whether they're here or not, is still, you're still in a relationship with them. And you get to use them as a model of who you want to continue to be. And so check in with the area of your life where you're most struggling and ask yourself, what would so-and-so do? You'll always get the answer. And now is a time more than ever for us to step into all of who we truly are. Think of all the tension and the separation and the hatred that's going on in our world today, in our country, because of the election. I don't know how it's affected you, but it's affected me big time. And the tendency is to separate and to feel right. And so I ask myself, what would Father Castle do? And I know he would tell me to let go of the judgments and the issues and love everyone all unconditionally. And if that sounds like a challenge, and oftentimes it is, of course it is, we're human. First, practice on yourself. What can you do today to be in relationship with yourself by embodying those qualities of the person that most inspires you? And maybe that quality for you is just being vulnerable or honest. Perhaps it's being gentle with yourself. Because the more you develop those qualities within yourself of that person that you most respect, it's automatically going to be reflected in the way that you treat everyone. Hi, Susie. Hi, Christine. Hi, Brian. I'm so glad you guys are here. I hope this message makes a difference, because really, we so need you to step into who you think you're not and be that. Because I have all those qualities that Father Castle modeled to me, and I thank him every day, and I bring him into my awareness every day, because those qualities are available in every moment. So I hope this helped. So be it, and love yourself, because that love is automatically going to be reflected outside of you. Have a great weekend. Bye.